Local programming on KRWG Public Media made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
This is KRWG Public Media, TV, radio, online. News that matters. Now, across the Mesilla Valley and the borderland, the stories that shape our community. From the KRWG Broadcast Center at New Mexico State University, this is Newsmakers.
Thank you for joining us for Newsmakers. I'm Casey Counts. The Las Cruces Fire Chief, Jason Smith, told the Las Cruces Sun News that the department receives about 700 911 calls per month for issues like suicide attempts, overdoses, behavioral health, intoxication, and welfare checks. The need for a more robust response to these types of issues may have been exacerbated during the pandemic, but it was going on before 2020. The city of Las Cruces approved over $590,000 to create Project L.I.G.H.T. And today, Chief Smith joins the program to speak to us in depth about that and other issues facing first responders. First, KRWG multimedia journalist Johnny Coker gives us an overview.
This year, the city of Las Cruces is planning on launching Project L.I.G.H.T, a crisis intervention unit that will respond to individuals in the midst of a mental health crisis. It will be a part of the fire department's mobile integrated health unit, and the city is expected to receive over $1 million in federal funds for the project. Jason Smith is the chief of the Las Cruces Fire Department. He said that implementing Project L.I.G.H.T is important for the evolution of the fire department and the needs of the Las Cruces community.
In our country right now, when it comes to mental health crisis and even just supporting our responders, it's just really been exacerbated over the last couple of years. Going into the pandemic really showed that our system has areas where we can improve. It's very encouraging that we have senators and people at the highest level of the federal government looking at this and making it a priority, as well as our local level. We have our local city councilors who have made this a priority and are putting resources towards it. With that being said, more resources for first responders, for fire departments across the country is going to be needed.
U.S. Senator Ben Ray Lujan visited with the Las Cruces Fire Department recently to hear about their plans for implementing Project L.I.G.H.T. He said that he takes pride in working to support emergency service initiatives across the state.
The more work that we can all participate in to strengthen access to mental and behavioral health services and providers is critically important. And the more services like that can exist for families across New Mexico, the more lives that will be saved.
Joanna Bencomo, Las Cruces City Councilor for District 4, says that the goal of Project L.I.G.H.T is to add personnel to the fire department that understand how to de-escalate and treat mental health crises.
I really believe, and the crisis intervention model believes, that you send the appropriate first responder, the person who has training in dealing with those situations, like, for example, social workers and EMTs, and they're now going to be housed under the fire department and will work collaboratively with police department and 911 dispatched in order to, like I said, get the right first responder to the right emergency.
While Project L.I.G.H.T personnel will respond to 911 emergencies, Councilor Bencomo says she hopes to implement additional health measures that raise the quality of life for everyone in Las Cruces.
What I keep hearing from both fire and PD and even some of our nonprofit partners is that we are just significantly lacking in long-term mental health treatment services in the region, not just Las Cruces. And so I think that's, to me, logically the next step is that we start advocating at the statewide level for us to be able to get treatment facilities that will hold people for much longer than the ER would hold them, than the triage center would hold them, because it is so desperately needed that folks who are living with mental illness, folks that are living with mental health conditions, that are probably living with substance abuse and may also be homeless, those are just the most vulnerable people in our community. And I know that there are a lot of us coming together to figure some of those pieces out.
Smith said that it's encouraging that the fire department is getting recognition for the efforts of programs like the Mobile Integrated Health Unit and others.
We've got a lot of hardworking individuals across our department, and this recognition specifically for MIH really does boost the morale, where they can see not only are they having results with their patients and their clients, they're also getting recognition at a very high level.
Smith said that the hiring for the project is complete, and they hope to begin utilizing Project L.I.G.H.T by March. For KRWG Public Media, I'm Johnny Coker.
Chief Smith, welcome to KRWG.
Hi, thank you for having me here.
First, let's talk about crisis intervention teams. Tell us a little bit more about their makeup and what they do.
So for us, the Las Cruces Fire Department, our mental crisis response team is going to be made up of a licensed social worker, a licensed master social worker, as well as a firefighter paramedic. We're pairing those two together so that they can actually intervene for those who are having mental crisis, and we respond to it through the 911 system. They're really there to de-escalate what's going on and make sure that we can get that person to appropriate care.
I noticed you said it would be a firefighter paramedic, and initially we learned that it might be an EMT. Have you settled on that higher level paramedic to be on the crisis response team?
We have for now. We actually have two of our firefighter paramedics identified who've been on the team since December, and they've been training and they're prepared to go out and start responding.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about the training that a firefighter paramedic goes through?
Sure. So the team looks out for training that's based on being trauma informed, how to de-escalate, just basically to meet the patient or the person where they're at right now in their crisis and de-escalate it without making them feel awkward, without any stronger interventions.
Can you point to some places that maybe you've studied or others have that you can say, this works, and here's why we know it works, and here's why we want to do it here?
Sure, yeah. There's multiple models of crisis intervention teams, whether it's CAHOOTS or it's a program out of Colorado or Santa Fe, but all of them are based on some level of social worker, peer supervisor, or peer, and then also an EMT. So for our model, we think it's going to work best with a paramedic and a social worker.
Now, we heard about this effort beginning, I believe, in 2020 for Las Cruces. There was a private company that was going to provide some type of crisis intervention, and that just never came to fruition. Can you tell us a little bit about that evolution and why it's now under the fire department?
Yeah, definitely. So the program originally was going out for requests for proposals, and we went out twice, and we were unsuccessful both times. So City Manager Ifo Pili tried to look at some other options, and we actually went out and talked to the CAHOOTS program. We talked to other providers, and really this kind of came out organically from our mobile integrated healthcare program, as well as Las Cruces Police Department's crisis intervention team officers. And they actually provided what could be the solution. And after some months of investigating it, we decided to go with the model they presented.
What do you feel that the fire department can bring to this effort that will really make a difference in people's lives?
I think it's our dedication to customer service and teamwork, as well as the reputation we already bring. When you see a firefighter come to your door, usually the door opens, we're invited in to help with whatever's going on. So it's our long history of being the fire department that this community can rely on and depend on. That gets us more of a patient's ear to be able to start intervening.
Let's talk a little bit about the budget. We know the city has allocated $592,000 to get things rolling, and we heard there was $1 million federal grant coming. Does that just scratch the surface, Chief, or what do you think that we need to do in terms of long-term funding success for this program?
For the funding that we have currently, it definitely gets the team going for this kind of proof of concept year where we get to see how effective they are and tweak the program as we go along. The funding that we receive, federal earmarks, just over $1 million, that's going to cover a lot of our capital expenses as well as personnel and salaries. So I think for right now, this gets us going, and we'll have to see what the level of demand is and how much we need to expand the program in the future.
When it comes to the mental health professionals, do they train alongside the firefighters, or are they, trained elsewhere and brought in from the outside? What are you looking for in a mental health professional?
So we're very lucky with the 3 social workers we currently have. 2 of them came through our internship program with NMSU. So they came through and they actually got to learn about the fire department and see what our MIH team was doing. So we have that relationship with them where we train with them, and they even look at what we do on the fire side, and they have an interest in, how do I do my CPR training? Can I get my EMT basic? How can I advance my knowledge of what the firefighter's doing so we can be a better team? And the firefighters have the same approach. They go and they do a lot of the same training, they do the same courses. Obviously they don't have the same degree or certification, but they're both interested in cross-training and learning more about what the other person does.
What kind of resources does the department need to make this program a success?
So we definitely need community partners. We need to be strong partners with our crisis triage center, as well as our dispatch center, so that they have kind of the trust of where we're taking patients and how to send us to calls, as well as our police department and all the other stakeholders in the community that deal with mental health. We're looking to build those relationships so that we can provide better care and better outcomes for our patients.
Now, we've obviously seen those tragic incidents where we've had bad outcomes and maybe just not quite the right personnel responding to that. And recently, some Memphis EMTs were actually fired. That was after the police killing of Tyree Nichols. Does your department have, protocol for what to do in that type of situation that those EMTs found themselves in?
I wouldn't want to speak directly to Tyree's situation and what those EMTs did or didn't do. But when we look at mental crisis, we do have protocols from our medical director. We have a doctor who serves in that role of how we can intervene, both with pharmacology, with medications, or if we need to kind of back out of the situation if it's unsafe until that situation can be made better. But we do have protocols for getting people out of crisis, whether that's with our social workers and just speaking to them, or if we need to intervene because it's now a medical emergency.
Let's talk a little bit about the Crisis Triage Center. How effective has that facility been for this community, in your opinion, so far?
In that, I think it's a resource that we're not fully using yet. When you hear the numbers from them that they report out, there definitely seems like there's more capacity where we can get more people of our community who are in crisis there for care. And really our hope is with this team, our Project L.I.G.H.T team, being involved with the 911 system, that we will be able to take our patients there and do a turnover so that the patient can get wraparound services and continuation of care.
How do you think that the Crisis Triage Center needs to develop further to be what it was meant to be for this community?
I think it's a lot of outreach. They need to make sure that they have staffing and they have that outward approach of we're here for the community, and to just make sure that people know their resources. I think the 988 system, how that just came up last July, could help with that. So now there's a simple number for people to call who are in mental crisis, who maybe they can be helped over the phone or schedule the time for a follow-up from a different crisis response model.
You mentioned safety a moment ago and making sure a situation is safe for the firefighter and the mental health worker. What goes into those decisions, and how do you protect their safety sending them into these kinds of scenarios?
It starts with our call takers and our dispatchers at our local dispatch center, of getting the information from whoever's calling and doing a lot of screening. If there's something that sounds like it's unsafe for our personnel to be there, they'll send police with us. And that's where the next kind of level of partnership needs to be very strong. Is I want our police officers to know that Project L.I.G.H.T is a resource for them as well. And the closer we work together and the more we collaborate, I think the better that we'll be able to do warm handoffs with people in the community.
You know, those call takers are really the first responders. What kind of training do they undergo in order to be able to handle these types of situations?
Oh yeah, so the call takers and dispatchers, they have their own requirements for training to even get to the floor of the dispatch center. So I know it takes multiple weeks and a lot of training, and our PSAP, our 911 center, is actually making some strides on getting that training here in town. So it should be quicker to train those personnel. And
obviously they experience trauma themselves from being in these situations, these intimate situations with people, as do firefighters and mental health professionals alike. What kind of services are available for the people who respond to these incidents?
Yeah, our peer support is very important. There's a lot of trauma that responders receive, but just either being a call taker or going to the scene, rendering care. So at Las Cruces Fire Department, we're working on expanding our peer support. It's one of the things that our Project L.I.G.H.T and our MIH social workers and firefighters are a part of, but also the operation response personnel receive training, and they actually are starting to form a very robust peer support group so we can go in and provide help.
You mentioned to the Las Cruces Sun News and to Johnny Coker when you spoke to him about the hundreds of calls along these lines that L.I.G.H.T might be able to respond to, including overdoses, behavioral health issues, welfare checks, intoxication. Would you say that there is one of those that stands out as the most pressing at this point?
I would think the two that we're really going to, I think, move the needle on are those suicidal ideation calls, as well as the overdose calls. For over a year now, we've been participating in the overdose outreach program. We're a subrecipient for that grant, and we had a social worker and a firefighter working to follow up on potential overdoses in the community and provide things like Narcan and education. So I think that's one area where we'll continue those efforts, but also the suicidal ideations where somebody is in a time of crisis and they need help and they need some resources, and I think this team is going to be the ones to bring them that.
You mentioned Narcan, and we've heard a lot about it in recent years as the opioid epidemic has reached, bigger proportions than we've seen in our nation before. How effectively is it being used in our community?
It's being used pretty effectively. The police department's carrying it, as well as some other responders that you wouldn't think of. We recently had a member of transit actually administer Narcan, and it has a good response to it for reversing those overdoses.
Let's talk about some other issues facing first responders in terms of your ongoing training and dealing with these types of new situations. It's got to be a challenge for folks in the department to find the right kind of training to get that to your firefighters who are then going out on the street. How does that all come together?
It's definitely a challenge. When I look back at my career 20 years ago, becoming an EMT for the first time, the section that we cover for mental crisis intervention is very short. We're talking a number of pages in a textbook, maybe a small amount of lecture. So over the last 20 years, we've seen that grow into community paramedicine, mobile integrated healthcare programs, mobile crisis response, and now we're developing programs that are out there where we can send people to receive definitely the type of training they need to intervene.
We hear from all types of areas of our economy and our government structures that it's really hard to find people right now to join the team. Is the fire department having any trouble recruiting?
Well, I'm happy to say right now, the last year, we haven't had those difficulties. We just graduated Academy 35 in December, on December 16th. So that was 17 people who graduated. And we actually had enough people on that hiring list that we're starting another academy at the end of March, Academy 36. We do foresee, though, with the approval of Fire Station 9, the last GEO bond process from the city, that we're going to need to hire somewhere up to 30 to 45 more people to staff that station and then to also backfill retirements. So we'll see this next year how much more recruiting effort we need to put forth. But I would say right now, if anybody's looking for a position in the fire department and interested in LCFD, to make sure that they pay attention to what's going on with us, because we're going to be hiring soon.
Now, did we graduate any female firefighters in that class?
We did. Yes, we did. We had one female graduate in that class.
All right. I know it can be a tough road, and I know that fire departments all over the country are really looking to make that outreach and recruit more women to the department. And so talk about a little bit of those challenges that come with trying to balance out that population.
Yeah, diversity and equity are a big thing for the fire service, and for me personally. As a young company officer, I thought it didn't really matter where you came from, just can you do the job? And now in my position, I see that it's all those differences in our difference in background and perspective that make us stronger, because it brings in different ways of looking at a problem and providing a solution. So we definitely want our fire department to reflect the community, and that's what we're working towards.
Let's talk a little bit about what it means to become a firefighter and what young people should do to become a firefighter.
Yeah, so I just got this question from a member of our staff yesterday, actually, about what can my nephew do to become a firefighter, and really it's enroll in DACC if you can for your EMT basic, for your fire science classes, begin that process. NMSU also has a student firefighter program. Those are all very beneficial to get your foot in the door. But we also look for taking people from a background that's different than that. Myself, I came from the investment and banking world. So I was doing that for 2 years before I got in the fire service, and complete different industry. So we look for that.
Well, that's quite a change. So what inspired you to make that change?
It was the level of teamwork. I was kind of an independent salesperson in investments and didn't have that team. And coming from collegiate sports, that's something I really desired again. So I spent one day with Engine 2 here at LCFD and instantly knew that that was a team I wanted to be a part of.
That's very interesting. As far as something else that I wanted to talk about with you for a few minutes today, and while we have a few minutes left, I want to talk about fire safety. It's that time of year. We just saw what our gas bills doubled, triples. So a lot of people are looking for alternative ways to heat their homes, and I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about doing that safely.
Yeah, we face that challenge here in the winter with gas prices the way they are, but really the safest way is to use your heater. Use it as intended and as directed. Some residents start using space heaters. Those can present a hazard. You need to make sure it's UL certified. You got to make sure that it's more than 3 feet away from anything that could catch on fire. I mean, that could be anything from your carpet to drapes to bundles of newspaper. It needs to be away from everything and then only used sparingly while you can watch it. It shouldn't be left unattended. Another
thing that can happen is when we get super frigid temperatures. I think 2011 will be a year that stands out in my mind. Lots of 911 calls for busting pipes and folks who couldn't turn off their water at the street. So how can people prepare for that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I think that was the one where we had 6 days of freezing temperature. So really making sure that any pipes that you have that are above ground that are exposed, that you insulate those well before freezing temperature gets here. Some people turn to running a faucet a little bit so that the water keeps flowing through their house. For me, it's just pretty much wrap the pipes, make sure your plumbing or your landscape plumbing is well insulated. And then if you do have a break, being able to turn off your water meter. And we did have lots of calls during that freeze to go out there and turn off a lot of water meters for people.
Indeed. All right, one more question before I let you off the hook, and that is that it's 2023 now. Did the new Las Cruces Fire calendar come out yet?
No, I don't think the new one's come out quite yet, but maybe for 2024. We'll see what the union decides to do.
All right. Well, Chief Jason Smith, thank you so much for coming and spending some time with us and sharing your perspective on the future of the response that the Las Cruces Fire Department will be able to offer for people in the community in crisis. We appreciate it.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Many people grow up with trauma due to abuse they suffered as children, or they may develop it after sexual assault. La Piñon is a nonprofit organization that serves Doña Ana County and southern New Mexico by providing help to those affected by child abuse or sexual assault. Joe Widmer, a former television producer, brings us this introduction to La Piñon.
La Piñon is the local rape crisis center in Doña Ana County and Children's Advocacy Center, and the mission is to provide comprehensive service to victims of sexual abuse and child abuse and provide those services to individuals, families, and the community. We have the local rape crisis center, which sees any victim of sexual abuse that comes into our agency, and for that we provide counseling services, crisis intervention services, 24-hour hotline services, and we also have nursing staff that provide what is commonly known as the rape kit. We help advocate for individuals with law enforcement through the judicial system. We have our Children's Advocacy Center, which provides services to children that come in with allegations of child abuse, child sexual abuse, witnesses to domestic violence. We serve Doña Ana County and all of Doña Ana County, all the way to the Texas border. And then we serve Sierra County, so all the way through Tier C up to Socorro County, and we serve Luna and Hidalgo County all the way to the Arizona border. So Kid Talk is a warm line, and when I say warm line, it's because it's got limited hours, and now that we are in summer, it's 12. It turns on at noon and it turns off at midnight. We're hoping after midnight children are settled. During school hours, it doesn't turn on till 3 because school's in session. And it's just a service where we have volunteers that are specially trained to talk to children, either through voice or text. They can do either one. And it's just addressing whatever the child wants to talk about. It doesn't have to be specific to anything negative. The number to Kid Talk is 575-636-3636. We're not here to force anybody to make a police report. We're not here to encourage people to go through the judicial system or to work with any other agency. The only thing that we want to do is provide services and help to be able to move towards the recovery process. Our website features all of the services that we offer. The number to La Opinion is 575-526-3437, and that number is accessible 24 hours a day.
That's our time for now. Join us this week on KRWG Radio. Every weekday, it's Morning Edition from 5 a.m. to 9. Fresh Air at 11, followed by Here and Now from noon to 2, and All Things Considered 4 to 7. KRWG News is always online at krwg.org, and we'd like to hear from you. Email us with story ideas and video submissions. The address is feedback@nmsu.edu. For all of us at KRWG News, I'm KC Counts. Have a great week. We'll see you next time on Newsmakers.